Let's do a quick reading of another New York Times editorial, and let's actually look at it as it appears on the New York Times website. Another unsigned editorial, and let's just do maybe a little quick and dirty analysis, and also maybe take some other things into account. Like, all right, the title is called "Why Keep the Old and Sick Behind Bars," and then you have a picture of what appears to be a frail, elderly man in a prison already. That picture is maybe part of the argument that, isn't really part of the argument. Who knows? Who that guy is, how old he is, what he did, if he's representative of the population of that prison, but already, okay. It's just an attempt to influence you, and maybe rightly, I don't know, but I'm going to ignore that picture because it makes me sad. And probably being in an emotional state of one sort or another is not the greatest thing when you're trying to actually objectively evaluate the soundness of an argument. Anyone who visits a prison these days might be shocked to see what looks more like a nursing home with bars and metal detectors. Prisoners put away years ago under the wave of draconian sentencing are now turning gray and frail, suffering from heart disease and hypertension, and feeling the effects of Alzheimer's and other age-related illnesses. Those are basically premises, or if they figure into the argument, they're premises, but they're just, things that are put out there. They're stipulated as being true, and it may be that that lack of evidence given, at least there, might figure in. Corrections officials once thought they had time to prepare for this, but something unexpected happened. Federal data shows that prison inmates age more rapidly than people on the outside because of stress, poor diet, lack of medical care, so much that their infirmities qualify them as elderly at the age of 50, which is another claim. I don't know if that's true, but it's plausible. At least some, reasons are given as accounting for the claim that prisoners, longtime prisoners, and I'm 50, so I don't know if I feel elderly or not, but that would be quite a shock if somebody was elderly at 50 to me. This problem is overwhelming the state and federal prison system's ability to manage it. Another bare claim, right? Unsupported claim. And unless prisons adopt a common sense approach of releasing older inmates who present no danger to the public, this costly group could soon account for a full third of the population behind bars. Again, plausible claim, but unsupported. But also, I think just, intuitively, we do get a sense of what the probable overall claim of the editorial is, that prisons should adopt what's called here a common sense approach of releasing older inmates who present no danger to the public. So I'm going to actually save that. Well, maybe I won't, but I'm thinking that this is probably something like our conclusion. Granting early release to sick elderly inmates with families who want to care for them would be the humane thing to do. And already that kind of supports that guess about this, because that sounds like a reason for this. But elderly inmates with families who want to care for them seems to be a new qualification. I guess that's part of the common sense approach to releasing older inmates, like kicking this guy out on the street if he doesn't have anybody who wants to take care of him might not be the best thing for him or anyone else. But it also makes good policy sense. So the humane thing to do, that seems to be the basis, something that this would be humane, that that it would be the decent thing to do, the moral thing to do. But it also makes good policy sense, given that they are far less likely than the young to commit new crimes. So there's a separate reason. So we're asked to support this policy of releasing early releasing federal or inmates, state and federal inmates who are elderly and sick, on the basis of it being humane, but also on the basis of it being good policy sense. And a reason is given right away for why that would be good policy sense, because they're far less likely to commit new crimes than younger inmates. They cite a study from the ACLU, which says that just 4% of prisoners of 65 or older return to prison with new conviction, as opposed to higher rates for younger inmates released. 2015 report on the federal prison system published by the Justice Department's Office of the Inspector General offers a sense of what managing aging inmates will cost. So here we're at another public policy reason as opposed to humane thing to do. The costs to government, taxpayer costs ultimately. Older prisoners are already more expensive than younger ones. Treating the sick is more costly in prisons. Costs will grow as prisons are forced to hire more and more people to help elderly inmates feed, bathe, and dress themselves, or to escort them on trips to see medical specialists. Some elderly inmates will also require costly infrastructure improvements, like elevators and wheelchair-accessible cells, bathrooms, and passageways. So it looks like two different reasons are given in support of this claim here, that it makes good policy sense, that it's a practical thing to do, I suppose, is the idea, as opposed to the humane thing to do. One is that releasing older people there's less risk of them reoffending, committing new crimes. The other is that it's really expensive to keep older people with health problems in prisons. And now we're back to that first reason, though, that the Inspectors General report also found that the rearrest rate for older inmates was relatively low compared with the rate for young inmates, and said that many older inmates were good candidates for early release. But federal policies, quote, limit the number of aging inmates who can be considered for early release, and as a result, few are actually released early. The report explained this problem is echoed at the state level, where eligibility for compassionate release, I suppose that's the basis for releasing somebody who hasn't served their entire sentence, is so strictly defined that parole boards almost never consider granting it. Okay. So prisons, of course, cannot release people based solely on age, but the states and federal governments can expand medical parole programs under which far too few terminally ill and physically disabled people are now released. In addition, parole boards across the country can screen older inmates for release using widely accepted measures to determine whether or not the inmate poses a risk. The best answer for the future is for state legislators to keep moving away from the disproportionately harsh sentencing laws that brought us to this point in the first place. And that seems to be an entirely different claim. It's certainly one related. It has to do with harsh sentencing laws, mandatory minimum sentencing, which might be the ultimate reason why there's so many older inmates in state and federal prisons. But it does bring up something which is definitely a distinct thing. So I don't think this could possibly be our overall the overall claim here. I think it's clearly what we thought at the beginning. Prisons should adopt a common sense approach of releasing older inmates who present no danger to the public. So let's do one more video on this and think about whether that claim, whether that overall claim, whether that conclusion is well supported by the rest of the argument.